Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Is it fair for David Cameron to use taxpayers' money to support only one side of the EU referendum debate?
This is the announcement today that this brochure is going to be given at a cost of just over £9 million to everybody in the country. Irvine, Welsh.
No, it's obviously not fair. It's very, very unfair indeed, and it shouldn't be allowed. I mean, it's like the same kind of thing happened in the Scottish referendum. There was a whole lot of one-sided propaganda, and the same thing's going to happen here. So there's no way that it can be justified.
Okay. Anna Soubry?
I think it's absolutely the right thing to do. I mean, you expect from your government that it should take a view, especially on the most important decision, I think, that will be taken for actually many generations, and that is whether or not we're going to stay in or leave the European Union. And so you would expect your Prime Minister and your government to have a view, and we do have a view. We believe we're stronger, safer and better off in the EU. I completely agree. And I think that this booklet, a copy of which I happen to have, absolutely sets out the arguments, and it also begins to establish the facts. And when I go out and talk to people, a lot of people say they want to know what the facts are. They want to know what the arguments are. And I think it is the duty of government to take a lead. Somebody's got to take a lead in all of this. I mean, the Stronger In campaign is excellent. We're waiting for the opposition to step up to the plate too and make the case, because we have to make that argument. It's not just about my generation, it's about my children and my grandchildren's future.
Yeah, I think that point's well taken.
EU.
Yeah, but Michael Bond's question was whether it was right to use taxpayers' money to support only one side of the referendum debate, this £9 million. And I note the Electoral Commission said today, we don't think the government should have done it.
Well, they're entitled to their view, but I don't agree with them.
They're in charge of the whole caboodle. They're the ones who are organising the referendum, well, and they say you shouldn't have done it.
Well, as I say, they're entitled to their view, but I think it is absolutely right that the government has a view and it's prepared to go out and make the case.
So you don't mind being rebuked by the Electoral Commission on this?
Well, we'll have a very friendly fallout about it. There's no problem with that.
Douglas Castle.
Have everybody agreeing.
Michael, it's absolutely not right that this money is spent, and let me tell you why. We're told that there is no money for junior doctors and for GPs, and yet the government manages to find nearly £10 million to tell us what to think. I think that's disgraceful. The government promised during the passage of the legislation very specifically that the government would not be a lead campaigner. Those are the words David Lidington used on the floor of the House of Commons on the 16th of June last year. I think it's awful that in the same month that the government has found this money, in my own constituency, Peter Brough Ward in Clacton Hospital has been closed to save a few quid. That is absolutely disgraceful. And it is propaganda. Let's be clear about this. It makes claims. It claims that Britain has a special status in the EU. That is a false claim. It claims that it will allow us to keep control of our borders. That is a false claim. This is propaganda. And this is propaganda put out by Number 10 because they're panicking. They were expecting at this stage to be 10 to 15 points ahead in this referendum. They're starting to panic, and they're doing it at our expense.
What do you mean by propaganda? do you mean it's lies?
Well,
is that what you're saying?
They imply in their pamphlet that in order to trade with the European Union, we need to be in the European Union, and that is demonstrably false.
And if
they say that we will have a special status in the EU as a result of David Cameron's New Deal. Nowhere in the text of his so-called New Deal is the word special status used. This is government propaganda at our expense. It's disgraceful.
Okay. Chris Bryant, do you think that it's legitimate for the government to say we're backing Remain and therefore we're entitled to put this out?
Well, I'm not really David Cameron's biggest fan on the panel, so it's not my job to defend David Cameron. And I can think of lots of other ways of spending £9 million in my own constituency in the Rhondda, for instance. But I watch Question Time nearly every week. I'm one of those sad people. And
nothing sad about it at all.
You get my point. And
yep.
every time Europe is debated, there'll be a member of the audience who says, why won't people just give us the facts? Why won't people just give us the facts? And in fact, yesterday afternoon, I was door knocking in the hail and the sunshine. We had both at the same time in Llywelyn. And this woman said to me, I do just want to see the facts. Now, just one fact I want to put into this, which is that in actual fact, the government will pay for both sides to get information.
Yes, that's right.
Because there's free post provided to both the in and the out campaign. Now, I'm passionate in favour of staying in, and I'm sick and tired of the out campaign only obsessing about process points rather than getting into the substance of the matter. Because here's the thing. I start from a fundamental principle. I'm a Labour person. I believe that we achieve more by our common endeavour than we do on our own. And that's exactly the same in the European Union. The big issues that face us as a country, whether you're talking about climate change, you're talking about dealing with international terrorism or international crime or drugs or whatever it is, we need to be permanently cooperating on a day-to-day basis with our closest allies in Europe, and that's why I will fight all my life to stay in the European Union.
There are a number of hands up in the audience, and I'll come to you, but Ruth Lee, you have your say on this. Do you think it's fair for this money to have been used for this?
No, I certainly don't, for all the reasons that Douglas and Irvine have just said. It should not be taxpayers' money paid for this. Ahead of a general election, would you think that the government of the day would actually use taxpayers' money to put out their propaganda for the general election? Of course you wouldn't. And it is propaganda. I'm afraid it is. And when, Chris, you talk about, oh, these are the facts, they're not the facts at all. This is just saying, by the way, I'd just like to read out what this thing is about. It says at the front, why the government believes that voting to remain in the EU is the best decision for the United Kingdom. And I have to say this, that I had a quick look at it on the website today, and it was half-truths and misleading information all the way through. For example, it was talking about a trade deal with the European Union. I want a trade deal with the European Union. I'm sure everybody does. But then they were saying, oh, we'd have to stick to all the rules. Well, do all the other countries that have trade deals with the EU?
Norway has to, and it's not...
Norway
does have to.
Does Chile, does Mexico, does Korea, do any of these countries...
Not actually in Europe, those countries.
No,
but Norway does have... Norway, which, as I understand it, is the kind of arrangement that you want...
No, it isn't.
Or you want Switzerland. What arrangement do you want? You want it to be like North Korea? Is that the arrangement you want with the EU?
Let her have a chance to answer.
Excuse me, that's a very silly thing to say, because North Korea doesn't have a very close relationship with anybody. But,
exactly. That's my point. You have to tell us what version you want.
If you would stop interrupting me for half a second, I will tell you. Let's be honest, I want a trade agreement with the European Union. Of course I do. And I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be negotiated. After all, we're good trading partners now. We have a huge trade deficit with the European Union, and I'd have thought any German car exporter would want to continue with that trade agreement. So that's what I would like to see. I'd like to see a trade agreement. But when it comes to all the rest of it, like security, well, didn't DLove say we're better off out to have a good security?
All right, now don't you two go on. We'll listen to some members of our audience and then other members of the panel.
You asked me what relationship I want. I have told you. Okay?
All right.
You haven't.
All right. The woman here in the front. Yeah, let's hear from our audience now. Let's hear from our audience, Ruth, for a bit. Yes.
I agree the government needs to set out their position, but I don't think they needed £9 million in the 21st century when they could have used online, social media, and for those that don't have social media and online, they could have actually put things out in libraries and post offices, etc.
So the money was wasted, but the idea isn't wrong. And the person in the second row there, you, yes.
I actually haven't decided which way I'm voting yet, but I think from my government I would have expected a balanced view in terms of the pros and cons for either decision.
So Anna Soubry, can you answer that? Why this doesn't have pros and cons?
Because I think it's right that the government has a view. We have a view on all things, and we have a very strong view on this. And I want just to come back on something that's been said by Ruth, that says she wants a trade deal with Europe, but she can't give us the detail. Actually, that's not the policy of everybody that wants us to leave the EU. So Douglas's leader doesn't want us to trade with that single market, 500 million people across the channel. And it's really important that we understand what do they want, what will it look like? Because Chris made a very good point, and we disagree on almost everything. Well, nearly everything. But on this week, no, we don't, darling, because we agree on gay issues, for example.
You just called me darling.
Yes, I did. I'm so sorry. But this is really important, because when we talk about the deal of countries like Norway, they pay the money, they get the free movement of labour and goods, they have to pay for all of that, but they don't sit in Europe making decisions about the future of Europe and how it operates.
All right, fine.
It's a done deal.
All right, Irvine Welsh, I'll come back to Ruth. Irvine Welsh, you've been hearing this. What's your view of it? And then I can come to more members of the audience. I'll come to you up there, sir.
Yeah, I mean, in general terms, I've never really got too excited about the referendum one way or the other. I think that overwhelmingly kind of people feel that they're trapped into an economic system, a global economic system, with all these elite bodies, of which the EU is one, the IMF, the World Bank would be another one, and their own governments would be other ones as well. And to me, it seems to be, you know, whether the citizens get shafted more easily within the EU or out with the EU, and it seems to be two elites kind of arguing about which is the best way to impose neoliberalism and a debt economy on the citizens of this country.
So, do you think it's right to offer the choice in the referendum, or are you saying it's a spurious choice because either way lies?
It's a spurious choice.
Hell.
Life goes on very much in the same way, and we've seen how the world economy operates, how the global economy operates, and how it operates to the advantage of very few people and the disadvantage of many people. But you can't defend the EU as an institution. You can't defend something that is fundamentally undemocratic. You can't defend something that's led by commissioners rather than...
So if you had a vote, or do you have a vote? Perhaps you don't have a vote.
I don't have a vote, no.
All
if I did have a vote...
Tell us what you'd vote if you voted.
I probably wouldn't bother voting, but if I was forced into voting, I would vote to leave, basically.
If you were forced to? Yeah. OK. You, sir. And hear from some more members of the audience. Yes, no, you're the man in the front row there.
I think it'd be really interesting to see what the Leave side would do if they had the money, because it seems like it's just another sort of cheap joke that they can throw and say, oh, the government's doing this, but what would they do? They're getting taxpayers' money too. They shouldn't use it. They've got enough big business interests that they could easily fund it.
Douglas?
One of the reasons why I think this leaflet is so unfair is precisely because on this one leaflet, the government will spend £9.3 million. That is more than the entire budget of the Vote Leave campaign. Now, that Vote Leave budget has to be raised entirely through donations. It's not taxpayer money. But by law, we're not allowed to spend more than £7 million on that. So before the referendum has even formally begun, the other side has had more money on this one leaflet than we will have through the entire campaign. I think that's unfair.
All right, the woman there on the left row. Yes, on you, yes.
I wish they'd been in business, some of these people, because I traded with Europe right the way through my working life, and we didn't have to have these trade agreements you're talking about. You talk nonsense. Frankly, a lot of you have never had a proper job, which is a bit of a problem. And if you had a proper job, you would understand what I'm saying to be true. If you work with Europe, they will want to trade with you, and they will not turn away good business.
So you're not concerned, or you're voting Brexit?
I'm voting Brexit, everything, and I'm going to follow Liam Fox's advice. And when they're proper,
has he had a proper job?
We was a doctor at one point, but I'm going to follow his advice, and I'm going to post the leaflet back to David Cameron in number 10, so they can read them themselves.
Exactly. We've all got the address. Absolutely.
Hang on.